Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are tracking a massive and honestly kind of unprecedented shift in leverage across the entire AI landscape. We're tracing this fascinating line from the Oval Office straight down to a high-stakes courtroom, all to answer one really big question. Who actually holds the power in tech right now? So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover, number 1, the Anthropic standoff, number 2, the administrative off-ramp, 3, AI's strategic convergence, 4, the DAF courtroom bombshell, and finally, number 5, the AI market reality.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the Anthropic standoff.
So, back in February, Anthropic was officially blacklisted by the Pentagon. They were labeled a supply chain risk, and this was driven by some intense political pushback, basically framing the company as a quote-unquote radical left organization that was trying to dictate military operations. The White House ordered a government-wide phase-out, Anthropic sued them, and at that moment, it really seemed like Washington held all the cards.
But wow, you've got to see how incredibly fast the tables turned here. Despite that February blacklist, by March, the NSA was already secretly running Anthropic's cyber model, Mythos, on classified networks. Basically, the nation's top cyber experts looked at the tech and said, yeah, we literally cannot afford to ignore this. Then, by early April, private markets poured a staggering $65 billion into Anthropic. And just weeks later, the White House was suddenly drafting a policy reversal. And Anthropic's leverage was absolutely cemented by this one jaw-dropping number, $900 billion. That was their valuation right after that massive influx. In the modern tech era, capital acts like a massive shield against regulation. When a company holds technology that's so advanced that intelligence agencies are using it despite a ban, and the private market values it at nearly $1 trillion, the government's leverage basically evaporates. Washington was forced right back to the negotiating table.
Which brings us to Section 2, the administrative off-ramp. Okay, so policy analysts are calling the government's brand new maneuver an administrative off-ramp. Think of it kind of like a political escape hatch, right? The administration needed a mechanism to clear the way for federal agencies to use Anthropic's tools quietly, all without totally abandoning their earlier, very public, tough-on-tech messaging.
So behind the scenes, top White House leaders actually held a private meeting with Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei. And what's absolutely vital to understand here is that Anthropic held their red lines. They still completely refused to allow their models to be used for mass domestic surveillance or autonomous weapons. Amodei just didn't back down. He secured a direct meeting with the White House and basically dictated the terms of their return. Moving on to Section 3, AI's strategic convergence. Now, the irony here is just absolutely incredible. When Anthropic first restricted access to its cybersecurity tool, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman publicly mocked them. He literally called it fear-based marketing. But fast forward to today, and OpenAI is rolling out their own competing tool, GPT 5.5 Cyber, through a super strict trusted access program. Users actually have to submit their qualifications and specific use cases before even touching the model. So OpenAI is doing the exact same thing they previously criticized.
Analysts are calling this strategic convergence. Essentially, the entire industry is quietly admitting that frontier cybersecurity models are simply way too dangerous for a completely open release. It's just no longer viable, commercially or legally. They're all converging on Anthropic's safety-first posture, which means the baseline rules for how AI interacts with our digital world are being rewritten by the tech companies themselves, not the lawmakers.
Let's shift gears to Section 4, the DAF courtroom bombshell.
Because, leverage doesn't just exist in computer code. It also hides in really dry financial documents. On day 4 of Elon Musk's trial against OpenAI, the testimony completely zeroed in on donor-advised funds, or DAFs. These are managed by financial giants like Vanguard. Think of a DAF like a philanthropic holding account. The whole core issue here centers around the specific funds Musk originally contributed to OpenAI back when it was still a nonprofit. And here is the quiet little bombshell from the trial. Did Musk legally relinquish control of his money the very moment he placed it into those DAFs? OpenAI's lawyers really pressed Musk's team on this, because if the legal standard holds that using a DAF completely severs the donor's control, well, OpenAI's defense becomes incredibly strong. They can basically argue that they were totally free to use those donated funds however they wished, completely free from Musk's restrictions. Great trials are so often won on paper trails. And this DAF structure is a massive documentary hurdle for Musk.
As the jury heads into a long weekend with super strict instructions not to research the case, by the way, the stage is totally set for Monday. The whole tech world is bracing for some highly anticipated testimony from OpenAI's Greg Brockman, as well as leading AI safety researcher Stuart Russell.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, the AI market reality. This entire power shift we've been talking about is ultimately underpinned by cold, hard market reality. I mean, Google Cloud is beating their estimates purely on AI demand, which makes their early $40 billion stake in Anthropic look like an absolute steal. Meanwhile, OpenAI just officially ended its Azure-only era by expanding to Amazon's Golf Cloud, proving they have the leverage to just demand multi-platform infrastructure. And Microsoft's AI run rate, it has stabilized at a massive $37 billion. These aren't just your standard quarterly earnings reports. These are the financial foundations of entirely new, untouchable empires. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought for today's explainer. We have literally seen the White House reverse course just to accommodate a private company's red lines. We've seen fierce competitors swallow their pride and adopt strict safety rules out of sheer necessity. And we're watching a billionaire fight against the legal realities of his very own funding mechanisms. The leverage has shifted entirely to the creators of these frontier models. So if they are the ones dictating terms to superpowers and billionaires alike, who is truly holding the reins of our technological future? Keep thinking about that and keep learning.